Welcome to the show. Hey, Bob, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Drie Bokke, a Ball BOD. Is my good friend Scrum 5 Rugby's Andy Daniel. Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Sheps. How are you, mate? How are you?
Awesome, mate. Yeah, I quite like that little intro, mate. We'll looking good.
If you, I'd like to take all the credit, but I definitely can't. The boys from Camp 5.
Yeah,
top man, Ruin. Cheers for that.
Absolutely. And before anybody sort of writes in and says, why am I drinking sort of half pints of whiskey? It's not. It's homemade water kefir, which is good for one system. We're trying to stay healthy during this COVID-19. How's COVID-19 treating you, mate, in South Africa?
Well, personally, it's doing. I'm okay. You know, the numbers are looking okay if we are to believe them. It's not spreading as fast as as other countries, especially the UK. But look, we're in lockdown. We're allowed a bit of exercise in the morning now, which is a really good thing. I think everyone's embracing that, maybe a bit too much, pushing the limits on it. But yeah, other than that, mate, it is what it is, and it sounds a bit cliche, but there's people worse off, and but it is true, and I do genuinely mean it. So, things could be worse. Things could be a lot worse.
Well, tonight we are, during COVID-19, we're reversing the tables. We have no sponsorship. We're actually supporting local and global businesses. As we covered on last night's Three Blokes British and Irish Lines. If you want to see that, go back to the main page, because that was quite funny, to say the least. But our good friends at Asia Security and Protection Group will be providing everything from personal security, advice security courses, and looking at event management and private executive protection, getting people from A to B for the whole of next year's British and Irish Alliance tours in the region. So please go to Asia Security and Protection Group and have a look at what they do. And if you need any further advice, contact myself or Andy or the team at Asia Security and Protection Group, and we'll help you. And that intro was done. You'll see in the top right-hand corner there. You the team from Alpify Media, digital media, phenomenal young team being put together there. And thanks very much to Roon and the team at Calpify for doing our small intro for us. Great stuff. So, Andy, what's been happening in the news this week? What's happening in South Africa? So, rugby-wise, anything happening?
Yeah, to be honest, we're no closer to any more action like New Zealand, the jammy little buggers. But yeah, I think the pinch of this COVID-19 is now starting to hit. We'll touch on it with our guests, but yeah, the Kings are in a bit of trouble. We know that it's always been not really a controversial franchise, but we know SA Rugby did a lot to get that up and running. They found a backer for it. It's not sort of run by SA Rugby, if that makes sense, anymore. So it stands alone, and it's got its own investment team there and everything like that. But they paid their players 10 days late after getting a bailout from the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality. So yeah, I mean that's up in Port Elizabeth. So yeah, they're struggling a bit at the moment, and they're probably in the one league that is very unlikely to restart, with the fact of the travel between all the different nations that play in it. So yeah, unless they can find some domestic rugby that will create some revenue, it's not looking too good up there. But believe it or not, is a question for you. Do you know what the name is, the ironic name is, of the main equity partner of the Southern Kings?
No.
They are, I swear to you, this is their name. The greatest rugby company in the whole wide world.
I know that we have some Kings fans on tonight, because obviously I sit in there for them. So I must have known that.
Genuinely, that is the name of the company. And the other stakeholder is Eastern Province Rugby Union, but they're an amateur arm of. They're basically the amateur arm of the of the organisation.
Brilliant. Listen, we'll talk about just that. We'll carry on that just a second. Let's bring our two guests in tonight. Normally we do sort of massive introductions to them, but tonight we decided we don't want to do that. So we're going to stick both chaps straight away in. Guys, you're welcome to the show. Drie Bokke, a Ball and Bop with me, Big Joe Shep, and Scrum 5 Rugby's Andy Daniel. Let's start off with this chap called Roydon. Please introduce yourself. You've got 90 seconds to tell the world, sell yourself, pitch yourself to the world as one of our new panelists. Roydon Frost, welcome.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Andy. Good evening, Reenen. I hope you guys are all well. Yeah, situation in Moscow, as I say, what can we say? It is what it is. There are people worse off in the current situation. Like I said, a huge rugby lover. Love is her rugby to death. Love my Bulls team. And for Joe, this is for you. I'm a Munster fan as well. So, yeah. And I also like Ross and Montpellier.
There you go. Reading's happy.
So where are you from originally in South Africa, Roydon?
I grew up originally in Rustenburg, which is the Northwest Province. Andy and Reenen will know where it is. It's basically Impala Rugby Club. They basically, that's where they operate from. I moved down to Port Elizabeth in about 2009, and then from Port Elizabeth I moved to Cape Town, and from Cape Town to Moscow. So I'm originally based now in Cape Town.
Good man. Listen, you're welcome to the show. Great to have you on for the first time, mate, and we hope you enjoy yourself. Also joining us tonight is no stranger to the main viewers of Three Books of Ball and Bod. And please, Reenen STENEKAMP, for all your new fans, if there are any more left in the world, Reenen STENEKAMP, and tell everybody in South Africa and the globe who might not know you, unfeasible as that is, will the real Reenen STENEKAMP please stand up?
Must I stand up now?
No. 90 seconds, don't forget.
90 seconds of city. That beautiful town that Andrew stays in called Paarl. I was born there. I went to school there to Paarl Boys High. Went to no other school ever. Then I came to study. When I went to the army first for a year, we had to do national service. Then I came to study in Bloemfontein. Then I went back to Paarl for about 5 years. Grew tired of it, so I packed my car. I came back with no place to stay and no job to do, no work. On the way here, I phoned a mate, said I need a place to crash for a week. That week became 6 months, and I'm still here. That was in 2002. I'm still here. As you can see, what I'm wearing, my heart pumps orange, and my heart also pumps Montpellier Rugby Error. That's me in a nutshell.
Good man. You're welcome back to the show, mate. First time on the Springbok and South African Rugby Roundup, but no stranger to your global fans. Get to see Three Blokes. Right, Andy. Let's just finish that one off with the Kings now that we've got the Roydon and Reenen in. Because I thought that the Kings, and this is me still learning all the time, I sit in the Kings Forum, like I sit in the Cheaters Forum, and a number of other South African groups as well. But I thought the Kings were pretty much shored up because of the Isuzu. It was a 10 or 20-year contract that they're backing them with. Roydon, what's your thoughts on the Kings? 10 days late paying the players, struggling to pay. I'm
actually in shock, Joe. I didn't know about that. I thought they were privately owned. From what I heard, they were privately owned, and two quite wealthy. Well, one wealthy corporation is actually paying for everything. So this is actually taking me by shock. What I just heard from Andy. I didn't know about it at all.
Interesting. Roydon.
Yeah.
Reenen.
Joe, I'll give you two quick answers on this. You just made mention of Isuzu, that's their sponsor. But with the COVID-19 mess that this world is, and no cars being sold now for a second month running, is Isuzu going to stand? Are they going to go down? I don't know if they've got money to give to the Kings, to be quite honest. The second part of my answer, when I was involved with Deaf Rugby a couple of years ago, with the Deaf Box, we really struggled to get sponsors. So our then president, the guy with the name of Tim Stones, went to one of the highest ranking CADU officials, I can't remember his name now, and asked him, listen, can you guys help us out with a bit of money? How does it work? Can we apply? Is there some, is there a portion to us, anything like that? And his answer to them was, look, we are not a bank. Simple as that. So this was the case then. So much more so now. I will be extremely I'll be extremely surprised if the South African Rugby Union helps out the Kings here. I can't see it happen. They need to look after their own interests first, which is becoming a massive challenge. So the Kings may well be collateral damage here. That's
Yeah, cheers, guys. Look, time will tell, but we wish everybody the best. And, I've said all along that we are going to lose some teams, some businesses, and things along the way because of this. But we hope everybody comes through, and we wish them all the best. Gregor Galway from Ulster is watching the show. Heinrich is on as well. He's got his screen. Come on yourself, Heinrich. Well done. Great to see you on, mate. Thanks for supporting us ever. Andy Daniel, across to you, mate. You want to talk about elections and World Rugby and how that's going to affect Across to you.
Yeah, I think the elections, I love this phrase, found out more questions than answers in the last week. Not just about how the election is run. I mean, having an election in the first place is always going to be open for debate. The fact that they allow people to vote over 4 days and twist people's arms and say, well, Ireland have backed us, so maybe you should back us, Wales. So there's a lot of that going on. There's obviously there was 2 real camps on this, wasn't there? There was sort of I don't want to say old school, but Beaumont was backed by the Northern Hemisphere to a general degree. Funnily enough, African Rugby backed him as well. Canada. So I think that the divide is very real, and all the Sanzar countries then obviously backed Pichot. They were looking for this radical change he was going to bring, and everything that goes with that. But it's actually what's caught my eye has been fans and what the fans have been saying on social media. A lot of people attacking Beaumont. My personal opinion is I'm more worried about Laporte coming in as vice rather than Beaumont carrying on. But I think what people don't realise is if it's Beaumont or Pichot, how many different rugby organisations there are in the world that have to be governed, but some of them stand alone. So everyone goes, well, why aren't we getting a piece of the Six Nations pie? World Rugby have nothing to do with the Six Nations. They don't oversee it. The Six Nations can do whatever they want. Sanzar, exactly the same. So they can work in cohesion, but you can't stop them doing what they're doing. So my interest really has come from, why is the Southern Hemisphere fans and teams so against Beaumont taking another 4 years? What do they believe they're not getting from World Rugby at the moment that they believe they would have got with Agustin Pichot? Because I'm still trying to, when you look through all the layers, it's actually very difficult to pick up, because their manifesto, although one seemed more digital than the other one, wasn't too dissimilar, really. They were sort of on the same wavelength. So is it a personality thing, or just historically, I suppose? Maybe Roydon can start us off. Historically, why do the Southern Hemisphere teams feel they're not getting what they deserve from World Rugby?
Andy, I think it's more of a frustration, especially from a South African and Australian standpoint. I don't know if Reenen will agree with me, but I mean, in terms of players and in terms of players being available for the box, it is always a huge struggle for Springbok's players to come and play for their team, especially in the autumn internationals. We saw it in 2018. The Springboks went against England, and I mean they didn't have Faf, they didn't have Vermeulen, they didn't have Leroux, they didn't have all their stars. And it was this, and Faf came in, but Rassie didn't use him for the Welsh test because Rassie thought there's no point. I mean, he's missed the most important game. So the frustration from our side is that the clubs don't want to release the players, and I think it's having an effect on not just us, Australia, but also countries like Samoa. I don't know if you guys remember, just before the World Cup, there was an issue with Samoa where they couldn't get their players. It was a preparation, and for me, there's preparation that needs to be done, you know. And I feel that maybe World Rugby is not doing enough in that instance. for example, I mean, Bill has been in charge for 4 years. I haven't seen much. I haven't seen many changes in the 4 years. Yeah, there've been rule changes and stuff like that, but eligibility has been a problem for how long? It's always up for debate. We always hear debates about how many players are playing in Ireland, foreign players in Ireland, in England, in Wales, in New Zealand, in Australia, in England, in France as well. So my question, from my side, the problem comes in is where not enough is being done to put the clubs in place. Now I understand the clubs have got their own thing, but aren't they affiliated with World Rugby in some way? You understand? That is, for me, that's where the frustration is coming in, and I think it's from Australia's side as well. I mean, like, okay, as we all go in terms of development, right? We all need to play part in development, and I think the Southern Hemisphere is guilty in terms of development. I've all along said there should have always been a Pacific Islands team in Super Rugby. And the fact that there isn't, and a Japanese team was brought in at the expense of a Pacific Island team, was very poor from Sanzor's standpoint. I agree with that completely. You know?
Can I just jump in on that one? I understand exactly what you're saying from a Northern Hemisphere, if you like, perspective. The difficulty, I think, Andy, but I get your point, Roydon. They are affiliated. It is the overseen, if you like, the governance organisation which sets the rules and the regulations. But when we say regulations, it seems like the loosely, guys, you should be following this type of thing. So unions do for the laws coming in and the changes and releasing of players and stuff like that. That I totally agree with you, Roydon. Totally agree. We also agree that, you know, you can argue the toss that Steve Chu from New Zealand went a number of years ago, and maybe the time wasn't right for the whole eligibility thing. So, you know, look, sometimes the time isn't right. So at least World Rugby, and it's not Seville. And I'm not just defending him because he's you know, from the UK or wherever. It is as Andy said, whether it was Gus or him, the World Rugby Council sanctioned Japan being elevated to Tier 1 status. It's not one individual on a backhander. I mean, Jesus, don't be so insulting to anybody, you know. But that's it. But Andy hits the nail on the head, and I've said this time and time again in every show we do about this subject. The Six Nations is a private company owned by the Six Nations, as it happens. Zanzibar is a private thing. The Super Rugby Champion, all of these things are private entities, and they can't dictate to them, because they'll tell you what will happen. Because I used to think once upon a time that all of these companies should get a license to be able to operate the competitions from World Rugby. And if they didn't sign up to what World Rugby wanted, then they weren't allowed. The same thing happened with boxing years and years ago, and then subsequently with darts. Boxing had, I think, the World Boxing Association or the World Boxing Council, one of the two. Some people didn't agree with it and then formed their own. And look where we are now. You've got 4 or 5 major different belts who have all got 30 belts within it, because they wanted to do their own thing, because money bought. And some big buyer will come in, like what happened in France, where they gave them certain players €1 million tax-free not to represent the country. That's the problem. How do we get over? How does World Rugby affect that sort of change for me? Maybe Reenen can articulate.
Joe, I got no idea how to answer your last question, because it's such an intricate question. It's such a complex situation. You know, you've summed it up very well, with all the different private entities being owned by who and the pitfalls that you have. And I want to bring Roydon in here as well. You know, as recently as November, no, but not November. That was during the World Cup, previous November, which is still recent enough, when we had problems getting our players into the box setup. I remember there was at Montpellier, there was a hell of a fight, because Erasmus wanted Frans Steyn and Bismarck to fly to South Africa. And Mohamed Ultra just said, no, they're not going. Finish and klar. And it's the way it went. Mohamed Ultra won that arm wrestle. But, so, you know, to answer the last part of the question, Joe, I've got no idea how they're going to approach this. I don't think there is a solution. It needs to be broken down into manageable bits, and the wall needs to be broken down brick by brick. And it's a massive wall.
Yeah.
So good luck to the ones who do that.
Yeah.
But to get back to the election, the re-election of Bill Beaumont as the chairperson, I'm actually in favour of that. I hoped he would win it, and he did. He's a traditionalist. The game is in his DNA, as in the case of Pichot, is also the game is in his DNA as well. But Pichot wanted to change too much too soon, as in right now. He wanted to go to a global season. I'm in favour of a global season, but not now. In time, we need to ease into it. You can't look at the growing pains that the Cheetahs had to go from Super Rugby to the Pro 40. It was a mess. That's going to happen to everybody in the world. If you're just going to switch it all over, this needs to happen over a 5-year period. So when you've got Beaumont there, who's been in charge for the last 4 years, this sport is so old, and it's got so many traditions and ways of how it's done. You can't go and rewrite that book overnight. You need a guy like Beaumont to steer the ship into that direction, granted, but with a soft hand. So I'm happy that Beaumont got it. I'm happy for him.
I must say I have to agree with Reenen there, because for me now, charity's got to start at home, and that's for everybody. Like, it's all well and good Pichot saying that the Lions are going to go and tour flipping America and stuff, and we're going to fly these people there. And how expensive is it to fly 50 people business class around the world to play a game that you don't know whether it's going to sell out? We said it a few weeks back. Now's the time to build locally and put some big roots in the ground that are going to stay for years. Instead of round peg, square hole, they might make a buck in the first year.
Yeah.
After year 2 or 3 and the novelty's worn off, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And the problem is there's so many pieces of red tape to cut through for anything in World Rugby to get past. But one thing Beaumont said that stuck with me, and he's actually so right, is you tend to get your own way more in your second term. And he's absolutely right. Once you've been there 4 years, all of a sudden, you start to get stuff. It's almost like they test you for 4 years. You really want to still do this? You really still want to fight us? Shit, he's going to do it for another 4 years. And all of a sudden, you start to get little bits and pieces pushed through. And look, people like to pick a fight for the sake of picking a fight. Let's be honest about that.
That's an absolutely valid point, and I think again it comes back down to we all wish that there would be more from the grassroots up, and I think with less money now. Look at Rugby Australia. Look America's and hasn't improved the same as Rugby Australia has, but certainly the Colorado Raptors have gone under. The whole MLR has filed for temporary sort of liquidation type of thing. So it's all in abeyance. So I'd like to see more stuff from the grassroots up and build slowly. And if that means actually, the problem is in some countries is getting the sponsors and the TV rights for sport where rugby is a 4th or a 5th sport. We know that in the Northern Hemisphere, it's far more valuable as an entity than it is in the Southern Hemisphere. Despite the fact that in New Zealand, it's part of the DNA. In other countries, South Africa, how will it affect you more? There is another thing I've just got to point out. Facebook is causing a nightmare at the moment, and I'm just looking on. They've just come up with some other crazy thing at the moment where when people are speaking, they're auto-generating what we're saying on the screen. I'm watching it on the screen, so I have no idea what that's about, lads. Jesus, listen, brilliant. If you could get a little character in the corner for our friends in deaf and do a little bit of that, Jesus, I'd be all over like a rash. But that is. But maybe that's an intermission. That's what it's for. But you could advise us, because I've just gone on and thought, yes, what's happening there? But the borrowers are typing on our show. Andy, sorry, mate, on you go.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because luckily tonight we've got Roydon on. Yeah. And Roydon is going to tell us how he's going to sort this out, because he loves a bit of global league, potential Nations Cup, and how it's going to benefit everyone. So. No, genuinely, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, because The one thing I do think needs to happen is a global calendar. That'll help with the eligibility rules. What I'm scared of doing is diluting products. I cannot see how anybody, Pichot, Beaumont, Laporte, can get a Nations League pushed through. I can't, and the reason I can't see it is because of the power that the Six Nations, Sanzar, and everyone has, that we've already said, and also the amount of rugby that is already out there. Surely we're just, again, coming up with some wild and wonderful thing that will take gloss off international rugby. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, Andy, coming back to your point of what you said earlier, a once-off test is obviously not going to help a nation, like you said, maybe for 1 year at least, and it needs to come in a grassroots level. So the effort has to come in. For example, like what South Africa's done. South Africa has, like I've said, they've got the Currie Cup and they've got the Rugby Challenge. Georgia and another Argentina team will be joining the Currie Cup. And in the Rugby Challenge, which is the Currie Cup second division, they have a Zimbabwe Academy and the Well Witches from Namibia. So
there's already an Argentinian team in that.
Yeah,
there was last year.
Yeah,
they were putting 100 points on everybody every week.
Yeah,
so
that's why they've been progressed up to the Currie Cup. So they're going to play the Currie Cup. Yeah. So that's where I believe where it needs to start. And look, I myself have said Sanzor's guilty there, especially with if you take Tonga, Fiji, Samoa. However, I do feel a global league will be of benefit. Let me explain to you what I think the global league will be better in some ways. The ways I think it will be better is we have the Six Nations team. Six Nations don't change. They stay the 6 teams in the Six Nations, right? And then we have the RC, the Rugby Championship. We can add 2 teams, or we can just leave them as they are. The Six Nations teams play their competition. Rugby Championship play their competition. You work that out. That'll be 9 tests once those 2 competitions are finished, right? Then you have another 2 tests open for, you can have a relegation between Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, all the developing nations that really need assistance. Have a relegation and let them come in and let them also have an opportunity to play tests against the other nations of the Six Nations and the RC. That will then be in total of 11 tests. Whereas the standard calendar, in the normal calendar at the moment, teams are playing 13 to 14 tests. Now, what I did say in one valid point is in one of my posts on Facebook, Joe also saw it, I think, was that if we divide the competitions, maybe the Six Nations not so much, but more the RC. So say, for example, we have the Rugby Championship for 1 year in one country. So we have 1 round of the Rugby Championship in Argentina. South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia travel to Argentina, and we play 1 round of the Rugby Championship in Argentina instead of playing the 2 rounds, because I think it's really not necessary. Why does the Rugby Championship need 2 rounds? We can just play 1 round from my side, and that will also then make it a lot easier to get players back. In hindsight, we can also start the Rugby Championship a lot earlier, because we can start Super Rugby in the beginning of February. Now, when Super Rugby was Super 14, it ended around mid-May. I speak under correction, but it ended around mid-May. So if you start at the beginning of February, it can end at the beginning of May, which leaves June, July to play the Rugby Championship. So then that means we still got August, September, October, November to do all the domestic comps. You understand what I'm getting at? So for me, that is what I think is maybe the best solution to what's happening. And like I've said, is even what South Africa could even do is say, for example, Fiji qualify. If Fiji qualify for to join the Global League, bring them in. Right, they're part of the Southern Hemisphere. Let them stay in Argentina. Then at the same time, the moment the Rugby Championship is finished, Argentina, Australia, and South Africa can all play 1 test against Fiji, and then Fiji goes north, or vice versa. It really doesn't matter. But that is for me what I think could be done to a certain extent. Because if you think about it, when does the Northern Hemisphere League starts in September, right? And it ends in May. So if Super Rugby ends in May, the Northern Hemisphere League ends in May, there won't be an issue to call up the test players for the Rugby Championship. It solves that whole problem.
One of the issues though is the global calendar, and somebody has to give. And I think actually to make it happen, the Northern Hemisphere has to give, because we are traditionally.
6 nations have to give. I completely agree.
I think
we are traditionally in that winter period, and everybody says, well, no, rugby's a winter sport, and part of the problem is you are competing with the TV control and the sponsors and all the rest of the stuff for the summer sports like cricket and all the rest of it. But the problem is rugby has to stand on its own, and it has to take a hit for a few years to bring a global calendar in. I mean, we all love the summer, we all love the sevens, and we all love a day out and a few beers and stuff like that. So actually, who's going to give first? And so the global rugby calendar has to give. South Africa, I think, is a different entity, because you could jump north or stay south or whatever. So I think actually it's a bit like Japan. You know, what happens? There's a whole variant of things that could be done, and I think everybody needs to be open. It's how best you, on a South African base show, how best do you think it will suit South African rugby domestically and internationally? To where would that best, I think, is the question. Where would it best suit you domestically and internationally to have?
Northern Hemisphere, from my opinion. The reason I say that is, if you look at the travel for Southern Hemisphere teams, and this is why I think people underestimate how much flights cost, how much accommodation costs. Now, Southern Hemisphere teams like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Argentina are paying for flights to 3 different countries and paying for accommodation to stay there, and that can be quite expensive. Whereas in Europe, it's obviously maybe, I speak under correction again, like I say, maybe a lot cheaper. You understand? Because say, when South Africa flies for Super Rugby, so let's say the Bulls jet off tomorrow, they're gone for a month. You understand? So you're staying in hotels for a month. Whereas in terms of like the Heineken Cup, the Heineken Cup Pro 14, you're not really staying for a whole month in different hotels, and that can be quite expensive. And that's where I think a lot of the money is being used by Sansol, or not even just Sansol, unions in its own right. In terms of domestic rugby, I feel that with the global league, if we start the rugby championship in June, July, we can have our Springboks back for the Currie Cup, and we can start the Currie Cup in September. I mean, our Currie Cup has become technically diluted because we don't have our Springboks anymore. And I don't know if Reenen will agree with me. Andy might agree with me to a point as well on this.
Just before Reenen jumps in, and I'll let him go now. There's 2 things that the Currie Cup needs a huge comeback, and needs a serious place in the kind of. Joe will tell you, back in the UK when used to see it on Transworld Sport on a Saturday morning. He used to see like 10 minutes of it. We were all in absolute awe of it. 55,000 packed in like Bloom or Ellis Park or whatever. Like we were like, wow. Like when the Lions came in, noise, everyone's like, wow. Yeah. But so there's that. But the other thing is player welfare here. Like no one's talking about player welfare. We're all talking about the commercial side of it. But like, I mean, I think even Khaleesi came out last year, and he's like, I do kind of struggle to be away from my family for 2 months, like, and it's a lonely existence.
Yeah.
You go into Australia, then you're on to New Zealand, you're in a hotel room. Like, seriously, lockdown's telling us we're having enough of our family. Yeah. For 6 weeks, imagine being locked in with the lads. So
but sorry to cut you off there, Andy. Yeah. But also, what you're saying is when you travel, especially if you're traveling over many time zones, that is fatigue it takes in your body. I know myself. I've flown. When I fly from here to my in-laws, it's a 4-hour flight. It's a 4-hour time difference, and it hits me physically. And I take at least a week to recover. So can you imagine flying from South Africa to New Zealand? That takes fatigue, and if you're doing that the whole of your domestic comp and your test comps, and you're playing 14 tests in a year, that takes a toll on the body. That comes down to player welfare as well. And this is what I think Khaleesi's trying to say. If we go into the global league, I have no problem if it's 11 tests. It is 3 tests less or 2 tests less than a normal year. the Northern Hemisphere will be able to start their season in September and go all the way to May without the interruption in November. You understand, for the tests. So they score on that as well, especially the clubs. So for me, an effort really needs to go in and have a look at this global league. Look, I understand change can't just happen like that. Rome isn't built in a day. Everybody knows that. You know?
Yeah, it is a player welfare point, and it's the whole thing. I mean, I've seen sportsmen in the past, cricketers and stuff like that, who've just given up because the mental welfare stress on them.
Look at the England cricketers, loads of them.
Yeah, absolutely, loads have given up. Sarah, who's the former player, coach, amongst a whole pile of other things, but she was also the tour manager for the USA Men's Sevens. And says, yes, that's the entire Seven Series. How they survive on the road. But we've got Sarah on in a few weeks' time talking about all of that type of stuff as well. But you're right, it is a play welfare thing. Who else have we got on? Sorry, I want to bring in Regan. Great to see you on the show last night. Mate, great to see you back on this one. The Rand is not strong in the UK, Roydon. Northern Hemisphere would be more expensive. I know you're struggling sort of financially on that side of things. Reenen, your thoughts on that, mate? On all of
that? Generally, the Rand isn't strong, but in the same breath, you look at the Sanzar setup, the Rugby Championship, South Africa generates a hell of a lot of money in that setup, the broadcasting deals and sponsorships and all. So, like Andrew said earlier, for Sanzar, to now go and say, okay, we'll shift now to a global setup or just go earlier like Roydon suggests. It's not going to happen. Single around in another country will never. You've got agreements in place right now with sponsorships and with a whole lot of companies. Where you have the All Blacks in South Africa every year, you have the Wallabies in South Africa every year, same with Argentina, and the Boks go play in each of those countries every year. You've got cell phone companies that put in millions of rand, just for purposes of communication when these guys go overseas. They've got infrastructure. The list is so long that'll never happen.
Yeah,
I want to. That Roydon now put up there with regards to the travel of the players, and with the Northern Hemisphere being an easier option, nothing could be further from the truth. I also thought so initially when the Cheetahs, went from Super Rugby to the Pro 14, and how wrong was I ever? A South African Super Rugby team tours Australia and New Zealand for 3 weeks. Then they come back. Then they've got one away game in Argentina and one away game in Japan. So it's 1 week out, 3 weeks out. That's it. Rest of the time they're in South Africa. The Cheetahs tour Europe for 3 weeks in October and November. They do the same thing in February. And then they go again for 3 weeks. And then they go out for another 2 weeks in April. That is 8 weeks. That's not the same as Super Rugby. Also, you need to keep in mind the massive acclimatization and everything around the summer-winter thing. To sit here in 38 degrees Celsius and 4 days later face the Glasgow Warriors on a frozen beach at Scotstoun in February. That's hell. That's what it is. But that's a lovely hell. But it's hell. But
at least they're stuck in a 4G now, so it's not too bad.
The same for those teams to come here. They've compared it to playing in an oven. I've seen it. I went to watch, to give you an example, I went to watch the Cheetahs play Zebra in Bloemfontein not long ago. Where are we now? Last year somewhere. But it was a hot day. It was 36 degrees at kickoff. I got tired just taking the steps to my seat which was on the lower section of the
It's a
pavilion.
pitch level.
It wasn't far from pitch level, Andrew. And now imagine those players. They fly from Italy where it's like 4 degrees. They come here, it's 36. What chance do they have? So it works both ways. So, a joint venture from the north and the south, it's going to have challenges that people cannot imagine. The Cheetahs are now in their 3rd season in the Pro 14. They still haven't got the hang of this, summer-winter thing. It's still a massive issue. We've had medical staff dissecting this. Physiotherapists, realistically so long. They've really given it their all. And still it's an issue. So good luck to whichever teams think they're just going to walk into this. And it's a quick 11-hour flight there, and there's a time difference of 1 hour. That doesn't mean anything. I promise you that.
It's still traveling. I sat a couple of months ago at the RDS on, let me tell you, one of the wettest, windiest nights I've ever had in Dublin, and against the Cheetahs. It was a phenomenal game, and we absolutely haven't come off the ball. But they played bloody well, and the tries they scored was great. And I actually did a live video. It was with our good friend, our Mufasa, the Lion King himself, Martin Buggy, and it was so good. The chips were cold by the time we got from the bottom. Talking about the steps, the chips were cold by the time we got from the bottom of the steps up to the seats, mate. And that was only like three levels up.
Now's not the time to talk about my stag do, but it was at the RDS. I was wearing a full red kit that Roydon would enjoy more than you, so I was getting abused anyway, and it all just came over the top in the last 15 minutes. The coldest I've ever been in my life.
well, listen. If you want to talk about cold, come and visit me.
No, good.
On that,
I just want to add the benefit of
this. Sorry, the benefit of this is that I filmed live from the RDS and shared it on the Cheetahs supporters page just so they could realise how much we were suffering for them.
Joe, I just wanted to add, that Scotstoun example that I just used, I just remembered now. I spoke after that. It was a February game at Scotstoun against Glasgow. I spoke to Clayton Bonikis. That was 2 years ago. He said it was so cold that the backline players couldn't speak to each other. You can't open your mouth because your jaws hurt so much that you can't speak. Now, really, it's that tough.
That's not a place for a man from South Africa.
You see,
hey, where am I?
That's your own fault, Roydon. Don't blame me.
I remember
you made a choice, buddy.
And it's cool that you were glad you were a prop because you got some body heat off it.
Oh, you know what, Joe? You're actually glad you're a hooker because you're in the middle. You understand?
Right, who have we got, Andy? Before you move on, who have we got on the show? In fact, we have got Mufasa himself, the British and Ice Lions' greatest fan, Martin Buggy, just talking about him. And there he is. He pops up. Subliminal messages in there. We are Martin Buggy. Welcome to the show. Who else have we got on? The great Dan Funsale is on from
another legend.
another ledge. Dan, welcome. A great entertainment. That's why he's on the show, mate. Dan, I hope you're well, mate. Good man at fantastic Rugby Academy Island. Coming to South Africa soon. Trust me. Who else have we got on? Andrew Payne. Andy Payne says Andrew Daniel, lockdown haircut. Who are you going to sue?
Can't see the wife. There
you go. And we have got Andy Payne again says, is that going to come up? Yeah, it is. It was the cold as that Exeter have played in plastic pitch was frozen. And finally, before we move on, Martin Buggy, it was miserable in that night, and we scored big, but I saw other teams come to the RDS, and we discussed that on the night and this season, and the same thing happened. But fair play to the Cheetahs; they never laid down. They kept going and got a couple of very good tries and left with their pride intact. It was a very good display on a crappy night, and they never gave up until the 80th minute. And you know what? I stood up and applauded them because You know, it was great, and as long as your team is moving forward and doing that, that's all you can ask for. And I have to say, despite the fact that they were getting walloped and the weather was that bad, the 2 tries you scored were exceptionally well taken tries that they exploited. But there we go, Andy.
Yeah, no, I just want to bring it back to South Africa now and how we're going to move forward after this lockdown. Please soon. And the way that the clubs are trying to survive at the moment, and one of those ways is they're looking at thinning. Easy for me to say, thinning out their squads, because the likelihood is you don't need the big squad now, the Super Rugby and the Currie Cup squad. So you're just going to have a squad. So unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of potentially good players out of a job very, very soon because they can't afford to keep them on. If Sia Khaleesi and Peter Steph du Toit are going to come back out of injury, fingers crossed, and join the Currie Cup landscape, then unfortunately you're not going to need the young boys coming through like you usually do. But yeah, and there's been some changes in age group rugby, which I'm going to let Reenen explain as well. But so far this year, all the developmental side of South African rugby has been cancelled. Craven Week's gone. All the other age group weeks have gone. The schoolboy international series, which very fortunately there's always some games in Paarl, which I go to, and it's amazing to watch the SA schoolboys in action because it truly is a sight to behold sometimes. Some of the rugby they play, so that's really disappointing. But Reenen, you've noticed that these sides are having to thin their squad now. It's a sad time, isn't it? But what's the way out of this, and what are the changes? How long are these changes going to have to be enforced?
And it's a problem for the clubs. They have to thin. They have to, like you said, thin out. They're allowed 45 players per team. That's why the Bulls have shipped off a guy with the name of what's his name now?
Kotze.
Yeah, him as well. His guy's name's gone now. Several big names. You've mentioned Peter Steph du Toit, who's most
the fly half you're talking about. The fly half who's gone to the Sharks.
Yes, yes. Marty Libbok.
Libbok. Yeah, there we go.
Team in more than 10 years. But anyway, be that as it may. That's Jake White's prerogative. The problem is lying with the clubs. 45 players, a couple of injuries, and you've got problems. Then all of a sudden you're going to scramble. From a Bok point of view, I think Erasmus wants a guy like Peter Steph du Toit to go and play in front. He's happy that a guy like Eben Etzebeth is there already. He's not even going to attempt to bring Faf de Klerk back because he doesn't have to. He's taken the soccer approach of let them play anywhere. They can come play for the Boks. Look at Francois Lowe, who's now retired. He was captain of Bath. He played for Bath for 8 years. And he was available for the Boks at every opportunity. So it can be done and it will be done. Just to illustrate the Peter Steph du Toit example that I just used. He's co-paid, the Western Province Rugby pays him and Saru pays him. Because Western Province can't afford him as is. So Saru also chipped in with regards to his package. The extent of which I don't know, but it's going to be at least 2 million. It has to be. Now he goes to France. All of a sudden, Rassie Erasmus has 2 million a year to work with. Because he doesn't have to pay Peter Steph du Toit anymore. Now let's say we've got 5 players like that they now let go. That's 10 million. With that, you can hold on to that. With that, you can hold on to the kind of player like that scrum off from the Sharks. That kid that's now made the breakthrough this year. You can hold on to your Trevor Nyakane. The list is long. You can hold on to those kind of players. And your guys that have gone overseas are still available for the Boks, except for the French conundrum where it's always a problem. But, there's still the Pro 14 where you've got guys like that centre, my head's standing still tonight, who's going to Munster. You've got England. Yes,
Yeah,
Dalinde. He signed a 2-year deal. It's a long time, but he can still play for the Boks. You've got lots of guys in England. So, from a Bok point of view, this is a good thing. It's going to free up some cash, which can then keep other players here, and the system will keep going. The clubs have got problems. Kings are in trouble, like we discussed earlier. I don't know how this is going to play out. It's bad news, but it's bad news everywhere. Look at what the Waratahs did. They let their coach go fisting. Let him go. We'll sort out the coach later. Cheers, off you go. That's the harsh reality.
Andy,
The
Martin Boogie brings up a great point there for Reenen, if I may. Surely, though, that Reenen, there has to be benefits to them changing from Super Rugby to Pro 14, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. And I might add again, for those people who don't know, there are 3 key members of the South African Rugby fraternity on the Pro 14 board. Rassie Erasmus, from when he was a coach at Munster, and now sort of your director of rugby at national level. The president of SARU, the position, jury was on there. I don't know whether that's still going to say. And obviously they brought Ralph Krul.
That's going to change, Yuri Rue.
Who was the COO. Now, so those 3 key positions on the board wouldn't be there if there wasn't for a reason. So there has been more speculation here in the Northern Hemisphere by more teams coming, as Martin adds on. There must have been a good reason for them change, for the benefits changing from Super Rugby to Pro 14, or else they wouldn't do it. Is it likely that we'll see? More teams come and join the competition, or do you think it's been a failure already and they shouldn't have done it? Both of you can answer that. Actually, do you think it was a mistake for the Kings and the Cheetahs to join the Pro 14?
I don't.
And if you're talking about how you more benefit South African rugby, do you want them back to be able to build, the Currie Cup bit and build, the schools bit from internally with everybody at home?
No, it definitely wasn't a mistake for the Cheetahs and the Kings to go north.
Not at all.
If you look at our performance at the Currie Cup last year, nobody could handle us. We walloped everybody. We lost the odd game, which you do, but mostly we were winning handsomely. So our game has progressed so much since we went north. It's just insane. That's the positive. The negative is SuperSport, our main broadcaster, who has this infatuation with Super Rugby. And Super Rugby is everything and the rest doesn't exist. I promise you that. The rest doesn't exist. But Super Rugby is everything. They will never let go. Never. It doesn't make rugby sense, but for them, it's the gospel. So, there's your answer. I would love to see all the South African teams play in Europe, not all in the Pro 14. I'd like to see like a team like the Bulls go to the Premiership in England, and 1 or 2 teams maybe trying things in France. It may well work, but that's fictional. France will never let anybody.
If I can come if you don't mind, what you're saying, Reenen, is I agree with you to a certain extent. What I think for the Kings and the Cheetahs to join the Pro 14 was a really good thing. Because like we said, players going to Europe, right? Francois Steyn is coming back to the Cheetahs, but he is still playing European opposition. And from what I can see and from what I've researched, I speak under correction again. Pro 14 teams seem to have bigger squads than most other teams. And what I like about the Northern Hemisphere leagues is they like to rotate their players. So the top players like Francois Steyn, if they are playing in Montpellier, they're not going to play every game. They will have rest. Whereas Super Rugby is completely different. The stars are playing every game. And when we're talking about in the terms of money, like Reenen said about SuperSport, I disagree with a bit about SuperSport, just thinks about Super Rugby, because the reason I say that is the part of the money that we are making now, we've also had to contribute to Pro 14. So I think a large part of that we mustn't forget about, as well as, like Reenen said earlier, 60% of the revenue Sanjo generates comes from SA Rugby. Now, from the last figure I heard was $600 million. Now, if South Africa can pull maybe 20% of that 60% and have Australia, New Zealand, and Argentina come in, we can take that money and then fork it back in and actually keep our stars in South Africa with that money. You understand what I'm saying? So for me,
you'll never have enough money, Roydon. I just don't think South Africa will ever have enough money to do it. the exchange rate now is so bad.
Yeah, but it's
going
dollars.
from here
You
to
see,
there.
it's
I
dollars.
just can't. Yeah, but I just can't see them physically being able to. And the problem is, like, and this is a completely different conversation, but the contracts of each different nation are so different. It's why everyone complains a little bit to a degree about Leinster, people like that, because the big stars only come out for the big games. But that's because they're centrally contracted. Even the England players have got to have a certain amount of games that they're not allowed to play. But from a financial perspective, I just can't see the Rand at any point, no matter how much somebody puts in. Plus, you've got to add into the life experience of being able to go and live in France or somewhere abroad and then earn that money and bring that money back to South Africa one day. A Skulk Brits, perfect example of that. You can pump in more and more and more. People will just take more and more and more. And the carrot of going abroad and earning the euro or the pound is just too much. It's too much for a player over here. So South African rugby have probably, they've never come out and said it. They've pinned their, they've sort of shoved their flagpole in the ground and gone, we would rather have an amazing Springbok team than have 5 really, really strong Super Rugby teams. It's the same in New Zealand. New Zealand is all about that black shirt. Okay, they're not. Yeah. I'm not saying they're not bothered about the franchises, but what I'm saying is, as long as the national team are going well, we're all good. The financial model in France and England is so different. So different. It's ridiculous. You're comparing apples with pears. That's what you're doing. It's that different. And this goes right back to the beginning of our conversation. How is Bill Beaumont, how are World Rugby supposed to try and cut through that?
Yeah, like Andy said, the contracts can be formatted, I suppose. But you do make a point, though, Andy. But also, what I do know is the money that is generated for the broadcast deals isn't dollars, and maybe to a certain extent, we won't keep all the stars. I'm not saying all the stars, but we could keep a large bulk of our players. I mean, if you take in England alone, there's almost I speak under correction again, 40 plus, maybe 50 plus South Africans. Now, can you imagine those 50 plus South Africans in our Super
They're just a sale.
Yeah, or Gloucester. Well, can you imagine those South Africans playing for the Cheetahs or the Kings even? Do you understand? Which will make it. Which would I say? Because I also feel that if the Super Rugby teams are also stronger, it will generate more audiences to the stadiums as well. It will also make a greater interest, which means more people come to watch the games and stuff. So for me, I believe it can be done. It's going to be hard, but it can be really hard, but it can be done. Coming back to the next thing, what we were talking about, the players going abroad. Let's say a player comes, he plays 1 year, and then he goes abroad. So the whole time South African teams are just sending players abroad, and there is no continuity cohesion. How does the club function like that? And that is also where I think it hits teams financially, unions as well. Especially like the Kings and the Lions and the Bulls and the Sharks and the Storms. I don't know if you lads agree with it. That's what I can see from my side.
Well, we need to wrap this up. And Andy's got, stay with us, guys. You're welcome to Drie Bokke, Ball BOD tonight. I'm Big Joe Shep with Andy Daniel. We're from 5 Rugby. We're with Roydon FROST and Reenen STENEKAMP. We're going to wrap things up because actually we've almost gone full circle on the whole thing, and we're now. Stay with us though, because Andy Daniel has got some very, 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 very special news about our next Springbok and South African show on the 25th. Let's come back to that right at the end. Roydon and Reenen, thank you very, very much. You've raised some absolutely fab points there. But our 2 small things to finish on from our viewers tonight. Martin Buggy says the Irish provinces over here, simple contract would suit the province as well, and monetary-wise, probably got about the best system in the globe. We feel. Some people over here don't agree with it, but it's actually probably one of the best. And Regan, Craig, on your side, spot on Andy Daniels reference the money. South Africa is losing the kids after Danny Craven with the Europe team, for God's sake. They're going to go where the money is, lads. It's a professional game. It is very difficult, and there are people way above our pay scale getting paid 6 and 7 figure income down now to resolve the problem. Listen, it's been a fantastic round tonight. Stay where you are so you can hear the Andy Daniel breaking news at the end of the show. A couple of things just to do. He is still on. He is still watching, but I'm going to give this man is an absolute legend as far as I'm concerned. Go to Rugby Academy Ireland, i.e. your very own former Springbok, Dan Munsale, the man, the legend himself. Have a look at Rugby Academy Ireland. Doesn't just recruit and run courses for kids across Ireland. It is for people globally, and they can place them once they've done their courses in clubs and franchises and stuff. So have a look at Rugby Academy Ireland, and there is no better academy, I don't believe, in the Northern Hemisphere to go and look at, because he's generating everything that other everybody is, that clubs and franchises and things are missing when the kids are. It's a very, very thin line from getting in. So have a look at Dan Munsale's Rugby Academy Ireland on that one. What else? The International Virtual Rugby Club are interviewing 2 All Blacks, the great Byron Kelleher and Stephen Bishop, on Friday. Go to the International Virtual Rugby Club and have a look for the time zone. It's 8 o'clock, I think, on Friday morning. Tomorrow morning, which is probably 10 o'clock in UK. The great Ian McKinley, former Leinster player who's now with Benetton, who lost one eye, if you remember, in a tragic accident playing, and was the first person ever to win to wear the World Rugby approved goggles, and playing for Italy now. A phenomenal story. He's just had a film released on Amazon Prime, so go to that and look at the Ian McKinley story. I'm going to share it at the weekend. It's absolutely phenomenally fab. And finally, if you're into reading about rugby, there is genuinely only one magazine I go to, and that's called Rugby Journal. Alex Mead runs the Rugby Journal. Have a look at Rugby Journal, and the current one they've got at the moment got a real coup there with an interview with Eddie Jones, which is very, very interesting. The whole pile of other stuff. Go and have a look at Rugby Journal. And then that's it from me, Andy Daniel. When's our next show, and who's on it, and what are we covering?
Yeah, well, funny you should say that, Joe. So, 21st of May. Anyone? I hope Sarah's still listening. Sarah, Alisal, you better still be listening, because some of your buddies are coming on. So, 2 people confirmed. One we're in talks with, but I've got one of the guests has been an agent for me and convincing. We will have ex-USA player, but South African by birth, Mr. Dallin Stanford is coming on the show. He is going to be joined by Mr. Mike Friday, which is like absolutely amazing. And chat to Mike Friday on text this week. It's been great. Still all sorts of stories coming out. And we are in talks with a certain head coach who might coach a team that wears green that I live in the Sevens world, but not confirmed. So what I would say is make sure you follow both Scrum 5 and 3 Bulls, a bloke and a bod, and bod, sorry, not a bod, there's only one. There's only one bod, 3 blokes, a bull and bod. And when that all gets confirmed, maybe we'll do some sort of release and get the hype going. But it's going to be a massive Sevens special with some of the best Sevens brains in the world, as well as obviously 2 of them coming straight out of this country. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. We look forward to that. Thursday, 21st at 7 p.m. in UK and 8 p.m. in South Africa, and equivalent time zones across the globe. And you can watch it on Catch Up on the same links that we put down if you want to engage and comment. You will see these 2 fine gentlemen back on the show in the not too distant future. A huge thank you, though, on behalf of everybody to Roydon FROST and to Reenen STENEKAMP. Thank you, lads. Stay safe in Moscow and in near Bloom. And Andrew Daniel, as ever, thank you, mate, for putting the show together and for hosting.
Cheers, Shep.
And let me come on. And for me, here's my word of the day: danky, danky, danky.
That's for Danya. That's for Danya in Russian.
Danky.
There we go. Multi-language. Give us something in French. Say goodbye in French, Reenen.
Au revoir, mes amis, et bienvenue, merci.
For me, Pasquale in Irish, good me the mahagut, haggis slangafol. Until the 21st, stay safe and obviously wash your paws. We'll see you all soon. Take care, lads. Good luck.
Cheers, guys. Take care.